So do I just talk for 10 seconds? Hey John, are you okay? Can they hear? Is it ready? We good? Oh, okay. Hi, my name's Clancy and I'll be your host today. Today we have Femke Buisman-Pijlma as our special guest. Femke is an associate professor and academic program director at the University of Melbourne. She's also a biologist and a neuroscientist. Over to you, please, Femke.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'd like to just share my screen so I can show you some pictures while I'm telling my story. Thanks for having me. I really like these occasions where you get to talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you got there. Because I didn't think when I was your age that this is what I would be doing. But looking back, I think it was pretty clear that some of the interests were already there, but I had no idea where that was going to lead me. And there were lots of bumps along the way, some really big ones. So I just wanted to highlight that as well, that it's usually the path to get somewhere is not very easy. So that's probably why John is pushing you so hard to do to train. So I'm an associate professor now, and I've trained to be a biologist. And I can't recite plant names, I can't recite animal names, but I love animals and I want to know how the human body works, and that is why I ended up where I am now. And I'm a scientist and a teacher, but also a mum, a photographer, and a world traveler. So I just like to take a little bit of time first to tell you how did I get here, what do I do all day, and why did I want to do that. So what do I do now? I work at the University of Melbourne, which is a really large university, but I actually don't teach the regular students. I teach people that have already gone out to the workplace and have a role in health as a dentist or a physiotherapist or a doctor or a nurse, or people that work in social work or provide help in the community or in the government, and they need to keep on learning because their job keeps on changing and what we can do changes, so we need to keep teaching them, and that's really where I teach the most. And my own interest is in neuroscience, how the brain works, why we behave the way we do, and in mental health. So Are You OK Day is really important for me. And I do still do research as well, really looking at how children, mainly at that mental health component, what do you need to be to do well? But I'll get to that a little bit later. So how did I get here? It was a very long way. When I was little, primary school was not a good place to be for me. I was really, really, really bad at school. I've got dyslexia, so that means that I had struggled with really basic things like reading and writing. And it was very slow and very frustrating, and often the amount of effort I put into something wasn't linked to what came out. So I'm actually used to putting a lot of effort in with not being the best at it. It took a long time to find something that I was actually really good at. But it kept building towards that. You really start choosing where do I want to invest my time, because it's going to take a lot of effort. And secondary school was a little bit better because I had more different subjects. I could choose a bit more, and I got more of the stuff that I was good at. Like I loved biology, and loved knowing how the earth works, hearing about different countries. I couldn't it, but I was really intrigued by it. Again, it was really hard to get through, and I didn't think I would go to college at all. I was interested in a lot, but I couldn't see that I could do that when I was already struggling so much at primary school, so to say. And I already knew that I loved nature, I loved being in nature, I loved being outside and looking at animals and people and how they behaved. I was always I was always observing, so to say, and I noticed things that other people wouldn't notice. And that's something that actually got me a long way. So it's not that I loved biology that got me here, but the way that I am that makes me different from other people, which is that I'm very observant and that I can spend a lot of time on trying to understand how something works, and that really drives me. And even if I wasn't a researcher now, I couldn't do without that. So when I started to study, I did pass high school, surprise, and I thought, oh, okay, so now I can choose. And I started to broaden my world a bit. It always been consuming so much energy to be at school that I hadn't really done a lot of sports. I was always doing something on the side like tennis, but it was never a very big thing for me. But I discovered rowing, which I really, really loved. And it was a great way to get to know people and to work in a group, to get fit and to be on the water, which I love. And it was also really good to balance the study, but I guess the first year of university was really bad again. I failed almost all my courses. But by that time, I knew that was what I needed to do. I needed to do biology to get where I wanted to go. So I just stuck it out and I kept pushing, I kept retaking, learning. And because of the dyslexia, it was really difficult to study the really thick textbooks that we had to do. And they were in English, so they're not in my own, I'm from the Netherlands, not in my own language, but in another language. But the second year, it was the same textbook, so I could lay a little bit of the knowledge on it, and I had more of a base understanding of everything. So I got through that, and I didn't do very well, but I did well enough. So I kept going, and as my study progressed, I got better and better. So the more specialized it got and the more difficult it got, the better I was at it. So that was really interesting that by the time I graduated, I got top grades, and especially in the research, that's really where I came into my own, because all of a sudden I got to use all these skills that I always had about breaking things up, analyzing them, looking at them, and that's what came very natural to me. But it took a while before I got into my stride, so to say. So I took some time to really enjoy nature, and like went to Africa and actually met my future husband there, who was also really interested in learning and in exploring the world. And together we moved to Adelaide 12 years ago. So we didn't come with a job. We went there and got a job, which was pretty risky, and we could do it because we didn't have kids. So we could just be a bit brave and see if we could make it work. And it worked. Because I always chose different roles that really fit with what I was very passionate about, and I kept building on it and adding components on it. I had made myself very useful for the. I got to set up an international new course with 2 universities abroad, one in London and one in the US, for people to train them about how to treat people with addiction. And it was a beautiful mix with hardcore science and really real life, how do you treat people? And it was really intriguing because I was always doing very specialized things, and it wasn't really my thing. I don't want to know everything about a little thing. I want to know the whole picture. And it was really interesting to see that I got a role that got me to develop new things, which I really, really enjoy. I like making things, and especially things that can teach other people. And that was actually a fully online degree, which then was new. And now everybody's like, done that, been there, done that. And these are the colleagues that I've done that with. So I'm on the left. In the middle is my colleague Mary from the US, and my colleague Anna, who is a Brazilian Welsh woman who lives in France, who teaches for the UK. And that's really what I love about roles in science, that it's so international. You get to meet so many passionate people that are really interesting. They've been places, they look at things from a different perspective, and they're very interesting and willing to help. And as well, I was able to build a family, which is in science not always easy. And we have got 3 kids, and Olin, who's here as well today, is our oldest, who's now 11. And 2 years ago, we moved to Melbourne to see if we could make more awesome things happen here. But again, really searching for a challenge, searching for more opportunities. My husband and I both had a really interesting time in Adelaide, but we felt we could do even more amazing things here. We both found a beautiful job, and we really found something that we're good at. And for me, that was really remarkable, because it's been such a struggle in the beginning, or sometimes it's still a struggle, but it was really to really find your spots is a really good feeling. And sometimes you find your tribe, you find the people that you like to be with, and if you can link your job to that, that's awesome. So being a scientist is always a bit vague. People don't know what it is, because it can be so many things. And we were just talking about it before. I'm not in the lab anymore. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. It's mainly, I do a lot on the computer now. I do a lot of analysis, and I teach. So a lot of the things that I do is teaching online. So preparing full courses, really talking to people, what do you need to learn, how do you want to learn it, and then developing a course that fits with it. And one of the things that we recently did was want to upskill nurses so that they're able to work in the ER during COVID. And we got it together in an enormously short time, like in 2 weeks, we got everything together, because we've already had lots of bits and pieces around that were part of a really big online nursing degree, and we were able to put it out for a very low price so that we could upskill 2,000 nurses here in Victoria. And that's something that gives me a lot of satisfaction, that I can really have that kind of impact in the community that I live in. And I also do research. My research looks at how your early experiences in life shape how you develop and how likely you are to have mental health problems later. And it's really looking at the biology of it. And this is where the complexity really comes in. I love to pull lots of things together and make it build a new idea of how something could work, and then try to test it. And this little picture on the right has taken me 15 years to come up with, to have an inkling of, I think this is important. Oxytocin is the love hormone, as they call it, but to really put it on, this is how I think it works, and put it out there was a massive accomplishment. And that's also one of the things that I'm really proud of, that I'm the world leader in this area. And it's really looking still, that's the research that I still do, is looking at how mother-child interaction and human-animal interaction, like with dogs, can really help impact on how you experience stress, but also how it sets you up to experience stresses as they come along in your later life. And the last question is, why do I do this? And I think the main thing is I can't not do it. This is really what I'm driven to do. It comes very natural to me. So I'm not good at learning. I'm not good at languages. I'm not good at specific topics, but it's basically I'm good at observing, looking at a problem, picking it apart, picking what the real problem, the essence of the problem is, solving that, and then really breaking down how to get there. So those are lots of skills that when you think now about what you want to do later, you think, oh, I like this subject, I must do something in that area. But that's not really how it works. It would be really good if you think about, so how do I approach a problem, or do I work good in a team, or do I like to be outside, and really take the whole package of you and then find something that fits with you. And something that I do is I love looking at behaviors. I love sitting in the zoo or an aquarium, just watch the animals, and then I find patterns. And I do that that's just the thing that I do automatically. So it's great that I can use that in my job. And I really want to understand the why and the how. And even though I do a lot of teaching now where I give content or I help develop something, I feel that I still need to foster that part a lot. And I really like to find solutions for big problems. And that's what I like about science, that everybody does troubleshooting. And in a lot of roles, you also have a component where you need to find that bigger problem. So what's behind all these things that go wrong? And that's really what I like to do. And something that I like to do as well is really work with the best and the brightest. And I think looking at the soccer clubs, I think there's often a lot of kids that really want to be in that top group, and there's different reasons why they want to be there. Some want to be the best, other want to be around the best, and I find that I don't have to be the best, but I want to be with the best because it makes me do the best I can do, because I connect all the different ideas together. And it's a very exciting environment to be in. And that is the best in Melbourne, the best in the world in certain areas. And it doesn't always, it can be your neighbor. They can be a specialist in something, or they can have such great insight in how things work. And I really enjoy that. And the other thing that really drives me is working for people who need it the most. So I've seen how I got to where I am, and what hurdles there were, and who helped me come work with that, and who put extra hurdles in place. So I want to be that person that takes hurdles away and provides opportunities for people to grow as much as they want, to find where they want to go. And also in that respect, to teach people and to coach them to find that place that that really fits with them, whatever that may be. Thanks. I'll stop sharing and you can shoot questions at me.
Thank you, Femke. Now on to questions. I will start. With your dyslexia, when did you find out you had it?
Very, very early. So when I was 3 or 4 already, because my dad has very, very, very bad dyslexia, even worse than I do. And we used to have babysitters sometimes that studied children's studies, and they just for fun, they were doing tests with us, and they were like, whoa, this is really, this is not what you would hope. So at the time, that term wasn't really common yet, and people didn't really know what to do with it, but it was clear quite early that something wasn't ideal. So I got help with different things along the way from very early, because like my hand hand-eye coordination was hideous, and I couldn't write, and so there was quite a few big things that I got help with, but there were also lots of people that were very they punished you for all the mistakes that you made, instead of trying to give you an opportunity to show where you could be good at.
Thank you. Harley, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm Harley. That was a really inspiring story. What was your biggest inspiration when you were younger? Like, whether it was to be the job you're in now, or just your biggest inspiration in anything?
I think it was seeing people who found their place, where they could really shine. And I had a few people that I came across that was completely, they were enjoying it so much that's what I wanted to as well. And along the way, there were people that really were more like change makers. Like I met Jane Goodall, for example, who's the person that works with the apes, and they're just astounding to see what they could do when the odds were so stacked against them. And I think that was the main thing, that to get to know people that had to jump a lot of hurdles to get where they were, basically.
Does anyone else have a question?
I see 2, Olivia and Ines. Who wants? Olivia, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I was just wondering, what has been the most interesting project you've worked on in your career?
I think it's the research looking at how kids develop and what they need to do well, and how much they can take, and that kids respond so differently to this exactly the same situation based on some of the differences between them. For example, when you're born, you're not all the same. you don't look the same, and on the inside you're not the same as well. And really to get to understand how your body can help you or hinder you a little bit. Like some kids are very anxious, so for them to do something like speak in a class, it's a massive accomplishment, where others really enjoy it and feed on it and almost need to jump off a bridge to feel any kind of excitement at all. And just to really understand, for me, how your biology is all behind that, and all the balances between the your hormones, for example, in your body, how that really feeds into how you respond to the world. And for example, with my 3 kids, to see that's illustrated with how completely different they were from the start. And even though you are, they come into this similar environment, how completely different they go about their lives.
Ines, did you have a question?
I was just wondering if you ever, like, because of your dyslexia, you ever thought you were never going to have or be able to do your job?
Oh yes, definitely. I really, in high school, I couldn't even imagine, like in the Netherlands, you don't automatically pass a year. You have to meet certain requirements to pass, and I couldn't even see myself getting to the end of it. I could, I thought, well, what kind of job can I do? Will somebody give me a chance to show what I can do? And I knew that I could do a lot, and I knew that I had a good brain, but I wasn't sure somebody was going to let me show them, because it was so obvious what I couldn't do. And if you see me, like I still write with so many typos and that sort of thing, and and of course I'm also in a country with the language that's not my own, but it is so obvious what I can do in a day-to-day basis as well, that every time you go for a job, you think, oh, will they go for that? And when we went to Melbourne is a big place with a lot of people that would like the kind of job that I have. So it's very competitive. And it was a bit scary, like, will they give me an opportunity, and should I be open that I have that, or should I just bluff my way in? And that's always a tricky balance. But I think it's really strengthened me. So a lot of the things that happened that were bad or were very challenging, actually finding your way around it makes you really strong. And I think that's what gets me where I am now.
Thanks, Femke. Ruby, did you have a question?
Yes. So hi, I'm Ruby, and I was wondering, was there ever a time in like your career that you wanted to give up?
Yes. It's very tricky, because I love being, but it's, again, very competitive. It's very difficult to have a family and a research, because you have to travel a lot, and that's tricky, and you have to work long hours. You have to be, it's not competitive, it's more cutthroat, and I don't like that. That's not me. I want to be the best, but not at the expense of everything. And I really had to find my place of how I can do that. And it is more in teaching now that I can. But yeah, I know sometimes it's really like, this is all too hard. I'm here with my family, but all the rest of our families in the Netherlands. So we don't have a big network. Anything that happens, you have to deal with it, basically. And sometimes we're like, oh, I just want to be at home, and just, that's enough already. It's busy enough. But that's really what I mean, is that I am so interested in what I do that it draws me to work. But it can be really tough, and especially if you feel like you're not given a chance. I think that's the most difficult thing. If you think I could do much better, but I don't get a chance to see it, to prove it. And then it sometimes means that you need to find a different role to find a better environment. But especially at school, I must say I've had some ups and downs. And just before my year 12 exams. There was a down where I was so exhausted from working all the time that I was like, I have nothing to give, so to say. And I got through that as well. But it's very tricky.
Thanks for the great answer. Harley, did you have a question?
If you didn't have dyslexia or you were able to go through school at the same learning level as others, what job would you pursue in if you had the choice?
Well, I wonder whether I would have liked something like being a vet. So with being a doctor and a vet, I think everybody thinks they want to be it at some point. But the way that you need to learn information, it's just not. It's not a thing. I can't make that happen. And I think that's something that I would really have enjoyed as well. But it's not that different from what I do now. So I work with a lot of vets. I do research with vets. For example, we do research into how animals and dogs, for example, help kids that are anxious when they're reading, or how horses help kids that have autism, for example, to really calm down and connect. So I try to take the best of what I have and take it in that direction. But I think it would have been a lot easier, and I would have had a lot more fun because I wouldn't have to to spend all my time on my study in high school. So I think I would have had more time to be social. I think that's the main thing I missed out on because it took so much time to study.
Deanne, do you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Dee. Yourself motivated through when it's hard.
I think often I end up like making I really try to make a little list of what I want and where I want to end up, and if there's an alternative to get there. So you don't always have to fight against the current if it's not necessary. And I sometimes pick bigger battles than I need to. A lot of the things that I do are linked to things that I'm not strong at, actually, which is a bit weird. So I think it's really good to think, what do I want? Do I really need to do this to get there? And then you get more motivated. And I think one of the things is well to try to just break it down a little bit, make it into smaller little goals that you can reach, so that you can motivate yourself by reaching them.
Casey, did you have a question?
Hi, my name's Tacey, and because you said you lived in the Netherlands for a while, how is living in the Netherlands different to living in Australia?
Good question. Very different. So I lived there for a very long time. So I was there when I was little and I studied there. So one of the things that's different is that in schools you don't wear uniforms. It's much freer. People are much more, they have a lot of freedom to go out, play with friends. It's not so organized. And the expectations are very different. Like in primary school, there wasn't any homework. You were supposed to play outside and be active. There was, and also, for example, the clubs weren't so organized. You didn't have a uniform for the clubs either. It was about being active first, and then later on about being competitive. So I think competition is much less of a component of the Dutch culture. It also comes with that the schools didn't have all those school facilities that a lot of the schools here have. First thing that I noticed here is what's all these big green areas near the schools. Like, what's that? Why do they all need an oval? That was for the Netherlands. That's really rare to have that much space to do sports. And here's like, of course you need that. So sports is much more a key part of the society here. So that, there are a few things. And I must say something that I love is that women and men are very equal in the Netherlands. There's not a very traditional idea about what women should do. And initially going to Adelaide, that was a bit of a shock. There was a lot of politeness, which was amazing. But also, people always ask me what my husband did. And it's like, well, okay, he's a secondary high school math teacher. But this is what I do. And they were always like, oh, that's a bit odd. And why do you want to do that? And you've got little kids. Why do you make your life so hard? Which is true. But in the Netherlands, that was much more common. It wasn't so. There was definitely a difference there. I think Haley has a question.
Ella, do you want to go now?
So my question is, you've done a lot of like projects and stuff as a biologist. What was one of the most trickiest ones you've had to do?
The trickiest one, I think the trickiest ones were sometimes because of the people that you had to work with that didn't want you to do something. Let's have a look. What was the most difficult one? Oh, well, there was one actually. When I did my studies, I did the bachelor in biology and did a master in biology. And then I started doing a PhD, something that I also never thought that I would do. And everything failed. Really, the whole, I was supposed to set up, or not really set up, to use a system that was already there. It was a computer system to measure behavior. And it was supposedly very easy to get it to go. I worked 3 years on it and it didn't work. And I'm a bit of a pit bull. So that's a good and a bad thing because I'm very persistent. But after a while, I just had to admit that I couldn't get it to work, which was really difficult for me because I thought that was not really an option. And it turned out that there was just a major flaw in that whole system. And I was like, so for me, it was actually the most difficult thing to admit that I couldn't get it to work and to change my path because I've been pushing so hard all the time into one direction and used it not working so quickly. I sometimes waste time pursuing something that's not going to work. And there was one that I could spend a little bit less time on. And but it was a great opportunity to see that when I talked to my supervisors about it, they had lots of alternatives, and turned out to be an amazing project in the end. And I think one of the other things that I thought about today is the 11th of September. That's 9/11. The day that I submitted my PhD thesis, which was 300 pages of research, which was for me amazing, point that I thought that I would never reach, written in English. I sat on the couch and I thought, wow, this is really going to make an impact and my research is going to astound the world. I was really like, wow, this is so cool. And then I sat down and then 2 airplanes went through the Twin Towers. 9/11 in 2001 when the big terrorist attack happens. And it was very humbling to see that you do a lot and you work very hard, but still in the scope of things, it's only such a little blip.
Thank you.
Olivia?
So even when your projects get really tricky, do you still really enjoy them?
Yes, usually, but sometimes you have to make sure you have a bit of a mix of things that are okay or working well and things that are tricky to move along. And I think often some of these questions, like the research question, I'm not going to be able to answer it. I'm just going to chip away at it and make it a bit more clear and get other people to work on it as well. But sometimes you do get very tired of pushing at one thing that doesn't work. And then you just need to take a little bit of a break from it, go at it from another direction, and then come back to it. And I found, for example, since I was in 1997 or something, I started working in the field of research that I am now. But I took a really big roundabout way of getting back there, because you do get sometimes tired of doing something and then not seeing a lot of change, for example. But I kept going it from slightly different angles and kept circling around the same field, and that's kept me always motivated, I think.
Harley?
Apart from the schooling, what was the hardest part growing up with dyslexia?
I think feeling that you are dumb and that you don't really that you really don't fit in, because you are so different that you can't even do your mother tongue and you need extra lessons to do it. It's really confronting. And I think there was quite a bit of bullying as well. And there was, it's just too easy to be picked on when you're in a situation like that. And I was already quite shy. So I found it tricky to connect with kids. And later on, that was much better. I had a really good friend in high school and that I'm still friends with. But I think that was really tricky, that you felt like you could do that. It was almost like it was an impossible task, and it took so much energy that you didn't have a lot of energy for sports or meeting other kids. And that was tricky, I think.
I have another question. So with all the things you're interested in, which one do you like the most? Out of neuroscience and all that.
I love the biology of behavior. That's really what I'm interested in. And so understanding what happens in your body while you're behaving in a certain way, and why we're so different in that. So we understand the body to a certain amount, but then the differences between us are pretty big, and I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued that it works most of the time, and not some of the time.
John, do you have John, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Oh, thanks, Clancy. I do have lots of questions, but let me pick one. Femke, what do you know now that you didn't know before your research that may be applicable here for these girls and us?
I think really to know what your strength is. I think often we look at what we can't do or what the other person is. It's very easy for the other person, but it's really difficult to see what you're better in than the rest, and just to ask people for advice. Where do you think that I fit? What do you think works with me? And ask several people, because they're all going to say something else. But then make up your own mind, and don't underestimate yourself. I think that's a really important one. We're all not all going to be the best in everything. Your own interests and skills. There's always something that you're really going to enjoy, and don't settle for less. I think I've seen a lot of people that are very, they're like, I've got this job, it's okay. And it's fine if they want to spend their time on other things, but if they actually really letting an opportunity go past that they really would get very excited about, I think, well, you can actually try, and then if it doesn't work out, that's fine as well. Just give it a go, and if it's not for you, that's fine. And I've tried a lot of things that I thought, oh, this is it for me, this is perfect. Science journalism, I thought would be awesome. And I tried it, like, oh, this is really not for me. This is not my thing. So just use opportunities you get, try things, and then all of a sudden they'll click and you're like, yes, this is me. This is what I wanted to do. And then for you guys, you don't have to lock yourself in for the next 60 years. It's more going to be like a river. You're going to go here, there, you're going to add to what you know, you're going to keep learning, and you're going to get a lot of opportunities to change direction. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be a butterfly, but use that you have different interests.
Thank you. Casey?
Hi, I'm Tacy again, and I'm Dutch, and like you, all of my family lives in the Netherlands, and because I'm a child and you're obviously an adult, how does it feel having all of your family in a different country?
It's difficult. It's very difficult because you can't see them that often, and it's difficult with the time difference to talk to them and to have just to be around each other. You have to otherwise really be very organized and exchange information instead of just hang out. And it's very difficult, especially if something happens that's sad, or if you need help, then you can't help them and they can't help you very well, and that makes it very difficult. And in the beginning I really struggled as well because I wanted them to know the kids really well, and you can't when we go there. They're completely jet lagged and they're not themselves, and they're not necessarily, when they were little, they weren't really eager to go with those people that they didn't know. At the moment that's very different. Now they're much bigger and they get other opportunities to hang out, but yeah, I find it tricky. Not sure if you find the same, or it's cool that they get to know another culture. That's really special, and I like that. But it's a long way away.
I've got another question. So, like, growing up, did you have like a certain like way you had to learn, or did you go to like normal school?
I went to normal school, and sometimes I had like a special tutor that took me for an hour to do some learning. But the thing is, it didn't really work. And when I was in high school, all of a sudden we got a lot of like literacy and spelling. That like a large part of our grade was made up out of spelling, and my grade went just plummeted, and there was no way that I could get anywhere with that. And I got a different tutor that knew more about dyslexia specifically, and that my brain gets the information in a different way, and she taught me how to learn differently and how to read differently with flashcards and that sort of thing. And it was more about how my brain got the information and I was able to store it. And it was amazing to see what it did for my grades. But I was just in a normal school, and also in a quite high school. Like in the Netherlands, it's streamed. So you have different levels, and I started in the highest one, where you have 3 extra languages, which is insane looking back, because I also did Greek and Latin to start with. And that was ambitious. And I didn't finish at that level. I went down 1 level, but I was part of the normal school. But it was really, it really depended on whether the teachers could. Everybody was the same, and they still could show the teacher what they had learned, and some really struggled with that. Are there any other kids here that have dyslexia or something else that makes it difficult at school, or no, really? Oh, you don't have to say if you don't want to, of course. No, it's quite common, and people are a bit more open about it now, because you get a bit more support with it, but it's not easy, we all know. Ines?
I was just wondering, like, what you think, like your top 5 best characteristics are.
Of me, okay. I'm determined. I'm stubborn. I'm going to use that in my daughter's not going to agree with me, but it's quite a good one. I can work with somebody really, really well, but take a lot of responsibility. And I always give my best. I think that's about it.
Hi. My cousin has dyslexia. What is some advice what you would give to anybody with dyslexia?
I think don't mix up how you feel about yourself with how your school grades, what your school grades say. Make sure that you take time to do things that you're good at, and don't spend all your time in trying to fix what you're not good at, because it gives you a very weird idea about yourself. Like my cousins have dyslexia as well, and it's affecting them in different ways. And I think it's really trying to make sure that you stay well with it, that you also think about your mental health and doing sports and something that's completely unrelated to reading. Another thing is try to find ways to enjoy reading, because that for me came very, very late, because I was really so slow at the end of like a paragraph. I'd already forgotten what it was about, because it took me so much energy to read the words, that I was like 14 by the time I read anything that was slightly interesting. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is good stuff. I never took the time to sit down and read, and I missed out on a lot. So I love now audiobooks, for example. So just try to find alternatives, and there's so many things that can help you now, like spelling checks and computers that can read to you. So don't be afraid to use all that, because then you can show what you can do.
John?
There's another question. Femke, you were talking about the relationship between dogs and animals. So we've got dogs, and I never grew up, but my family are very keen. And just tell us about that relationship. And you, I think, brought in stress as well. I think.
Yeah. So it's funny that especially dogs, when dogs interact with us, they make us feel like they are our babies, and they tap into the brain in a similar way as babies do, where you got this very strong urge to take care of them. And when they look at you with those cute eyes, you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And it's very similar to how mums' brains change when they're pregnant to respond to baby, so that you drop everything else and you just go and do that. And we know, for example, that kids that have autism or kids that are very afraid to read, sometimes and sometimes it has to do with the social context, where there are expectations about how a child reacts. And animals are very accepting of you, that you just are, and that's great, that's good, and that's it's very relaxing for anybody to have a pet. Everybody can. I'm a cat person, but I know my kids would love a dog. And it's the touch as well. So it's the warmness that's again releases that love hormone in us, and that's very calming. So it's called oxytocin, and it's dubbed the love hormone, but it's something that is released when we're close to somebody. So it can be a person, but it can also be an animal, and it makes us very calm, and it changes on edge and stress to a little bit more chill, and I'll sit on the couch with you and cuddle a little bit more. So, and I think sometimes you do, you have to learn to be around animals, especially if they are unpredictable to you. That can be stressful. But if you feel okay around an animal, then that's a really positive thing that can be really calming and reduce anxiety or stress.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just before I wrap up, does anyone else have a question they wanted to ask? No? Okay.
Lila?
Wait,
sorry.
Sorry. Does someone have one?
Go, Lila.
So my question is, has anyone told you that you couldn't be a biologist because you weren't as good as them, or because you had autism?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So already in high school, one of the teachers said, when my parents said, well, could you grade her work differently? It was a French teacher, like, could you not basically mark down for every mistake in a sentence because I could make 10 errors in a mistake, which would give me a 0 for the test, and say, basically, can you just do a maximum of 3 errors in one sentence, for example. I said, well, if you want me to treat you like a disabled person, I can. And if that's what you want all your life, then that's fine. So there was something that was there quite early already. But also in research, people think they are often pretty awesome. Some people think they're a bit full of themselves sometimes. And they're like, well, why don't you just go do something else if you want to have a family or if you have dyslexia? Really, that's not what we need. And I think actually it is really important that there is a lot of diverse people get into science, people of color, people with different genders, different experiences, different backgrounds, because you need that to do good work in general and science in particular. So yeah, definitely they have. And I'm pretty stubborn, as I said, so I'm not going to wait for them to approve of me, but it's tough to push forward. But I think everybody here will experience that sometimes, where somebody makes you feel not good enough to be there. But that usually says more about them than about you.
John, just the last question before we wrap.
Thanks, Clancy. Femke, and it's fascinating and so many different angles and about the human character, and thanks for your sharing your vulnerability. Well, one thing that struck me early on, you said about effort, that you put a lot of effort, and that didn't map to the word I picked up was improvement, and that's a kind of normal we expect, right? Like even as a coach, these girls are doing juggling, aren't they? The more effort you put, the more reward you earn. That's an assumption, right? I'm just trying to consume that non-linearity.
Yeah, and I think that was really the problem that, so if I would, normally if you practice something, you can get better at it, because I just couldn't learn to do it better in that specific way. I had to find a different way to learn it before I could get better. And I had the problem is with schools, they test you in a certain way, and what you can show doesn't always fit with how they want to test you. And a lot of kids get a little bit caught in that, and especially I think in high school, when it's even more about testing and showing your knowledge. So in that respect, it's really good to think about when you get a job later on, you might be amazing. But that doesn't mean that in a test they will pick up how amazing you are, because in jobs you need to use a lot of different skills together. And in school they often test one at a time. And some kids are really, really good at showing that one skill and training really hard for it and then forgetting it completely. While others, probably like me, are good at combining those things and can demonstrate it at a very high level under a lot of stress in very complex situations, but are really bad at showing that one. That's been really difficult for me, because sometimes then I also don't assume I can learn something. Like in this COVID time, I've started painting, something that I've never thought I do, because I can't draw and I've got very bad hand-eye coordination. So it's something that I would avoid. But it's something that I know is like, well, this is something that I can still now, at being 40 plus, I can get better at if I try. So it really, normally you can definitely train something, and more training will get a better result. But sometimes you just have to admit that a certain kind of training is not going to work for you, and then come up with something else.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to wrap up now. So thank you, Femke, for taking the time out of your day to talk to us about what you do and how you got there, and about your struggles. On behalf of the Glen Eira Home Football School, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Lovely meeting you girls.
Thanks. I'll just turn the recording off.
Thank you. Thank you.